My wife took off her ring saying she needed freedom, so I quietly hired a PI, and at divorce mediation, she lost everything she thought she deserved. I was 34, when my life changed in a way I never saw coming. For 8 years, I thought I knew my wife. She was emotional, creative, and full of dramatic ideas, but I always told myself that was just part of her artistic nature. She loved painting, writing, and talking about her big dreams, and I tried my best to support her even when her moods shifted quickly. I learned that sometimes it was easier to stay quiet and nod than to argue with her, because once she made up her mind about something, she rarely listened to reason. But that Tuesday morning was different. That morning she took off her wedding ring, placed it on the kitchen counter, and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. The small metal ring made a sharp sound as it hit the counter, and somehow that sound felt louder than any shout or fight we had ever had. She stood there in her loose sweater and yoga pants, her hair pulled back, and told me she was done with our marriage. She said she needed to be free, that she wanted to find someone who appreciated her for her true spirit. She claimed I was suffocating her creativity, that I did not understand her artistic soul, and that she deserved better than what I could give. I did not argue back. I just nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I had learned long ago that when she spoke in these dramatic ways, there was no point in fighting her. This time, however, it felt different. She did not just say the words. She actually took off the ring, something she had never done before. She told me she was not moving out immediately, but that she needed space to figure things out. She said she would spend more time at her art studio, stay out late, meet new people, and explore who she really was outside of marriage. She spoke as if it were some spiritual journey she had to take. I watched as she picked up her purse, slipped on her shoes, and walked out the door, leaving behind an empty silence that felt heavier than anything I had ever felt. Our home, which used to be filled with her loud energy and constant ideas, suddenly felt cold and hollow. That evening, I sat in my office and opened my laptop. I saw her social media post where she wrote about starting a new chapter and living authentically. Her friends from the art community filled the comments with support, cheering her on with fire emojis and messages about freedom and following your bliss. I closed the laptop slowly, realizing that she was no longer even trying to hide what she was doing. In that moment, I made a decision that would change both of our lives forever. The next morning, I called a private investigator named Marcus Chun. I had heard about him through a colleague who said he was honest, professional, and very careful in handling divorce cases. When I met him, I told him everything. I said my wife had basically announced that she planned to be with other people while still married to me, and I needed proof of whatever she was about to do. Marcus explained his work clearly. He talked about his fees, about what was legal to record, and about what kind of evidence would actually count in court. I agreed right away and signed his papers that afternoon. At home, my wife's routine changed quickly. She left early, came home late, and often smelled of wine and cigarettes when she returned. She became protective of her phone, carrying it everywhere, even into the bathroom. When I asked about her day, she gave me short, vague answers about networking events or gallery openings. It did not take long before Marcus sent me his first report. Just 3 days later, I opened an encrypted email and found pictures that confirmed what I already suspected. She was not spending all her time at the studio. Instead, she was at bars in the arts district, drinking and laughing with different men. The photos showed her in close conversations, smiling, leaning in, touching their arms. There was no doubt about what was happening. Over the next weeks, Marcus continued sending reports. He was extremely careful, taking photos, writing detailed notes, and tracking dates and locations. The pattern was clear. She was meeting several different men, not just one. At home, she became more unstable. Sometimes she tried to talk to me casually, as if nothing had changed, and other times she became angry and defensive, saying that marriage was old-fashioned and that she was rediscovering herself. She talked about how the new people she met understood her vision in a way I never could. One evening, she spoke openly about divorce for the first time. She said she had met with a lawyer and wanted to know her options. She told me she had supported me for years, that she had sacrificed for our marriage, and that she deserved fair compensation if we ended things. She mentioned spousal support and made it clear that she believed she was entitled to a good amount since I made much more money than her. I listened quietly, not arguing, because I already knew I had all the proof I needed building up week after week from Marcus. The reports from Marcus continued to arrive, and each new file made the situation clearer. My wife was not living like someone who needed space to think. She was living like someone who had already chosen a new life. There were 4 men she seemed to rotate between. One was a gallery owner who took her to fancy restaurants. Another was a musician she met at a coffee shop. Then there was a businessman from her yoga class, and finally a younger artist from her studio. Marcus sent photos of her walking hand in hand with them, laughing over drinks, and even spending nights away from home. The worst report came when she told me she was going to a weekend art retreat. In reality, Marcus had proof that she spent the entire weekend at a resort with one of the men. That was the moment I knew I had enough. After 2 months of documentation, I met with a divorce lawyer. She was experienced, sharp, and honest. When I handed her the file Marcus had built, she took her time looking through the photos, receipts, and written notes. Her expression said everything. She told me this evidence would change everything in court, especially when it came to spousal support. She explained that judges do not look kindly on spouses who demand money while secretly living double lives. I listened and felt something I had not felt in weeks. Calm. I filed for divorce that same week. When my wife found out, she acted calm at first. She told me she had expected it, and that it was probably for the best. She even smiled and said she knew she deserved a fair settlement. She spoke with confidence, almost as if she believed she held the upper hand. She said her lawyer assured her that she had strong chances of getting spousal support because she had sacrificed her career to support mine. I did not correct her. I let her talk while keeping the evidence close. 6 weeks later, we sat in a conference room downtown for mediation. The room was cold and bare, with a long table and plain chairs. My wife walked in wearing a flowing dress and handmade jewelry, playing the role of the free artist she always wanted to be. Her lawyer, a middle-aged man who often represented artists, sat beside her. They looked confident. They spoke first, asking for significant spousal support. They claimed she had given up opportunities to help our marriage, that she needed time and money to build her life again, and that she was used to a certain lifestyle I could easily afford to continue supporting. I sat quietly as my lawyer waited. Then she opened her briefcase, took out a stack of manila folders, and spread them on the table. She began laying out the reports one by one. Photos of my wife with different men at bars, restaurants, and hotels. Timestamps, locations, receipts from our joint account paying for trips and dinners that were not for us. The room fell silent. My wife's face changed from confidence to shock, then to panic. She tried to speak, but her lawyer stopped her. He knew what this meant. My lawyer explained calmly that this was not just infidelity, but also financial misconduct. She had used shared money to fund her new life while still living under our roof. Under state law, this destroyed her claim for spousal support. The judge would likely give her little to nothing. My wife tried to argue, saying she had already ended the marriage in her mind before these relationships, but the timeline made it clear. She was still living at home, still taking money from our account, and still acting like my wife in public while hiding the truth. Her lawyer requested a private meeting. They left the room for nearly an hour. When they returned, my wife looked defeated. Gone was the bright smile. Gone was the confidence. She looked like someone who finally realized she had lost control of the story. The settlement they agreed to was a fraction of what she had demanded. She got temporary support for 6 months and a small share of our assets. I kept the house, my savings, and my retirement accounts. She walked away with pennies compared to what she thought she would win. Months later, I learned through friends that she left the city. Her art career never took off. The community that once supported her began to whisper about what happened. Her social media posts about living authentically received very little support. She tried to start over somewhere new, but the spark she thought she would find seemed to fade. 1 year after the divorce, her former lawyer even contacted me. My ex-wife was blaming him for not protecting her better during mediation. He wanted to confirm details about the evidence timeline to protect himself from a complaint. I directed him to my lawyer and Marcus. The irony struck me. She once said she wanted freedom more than anything, but that freedom came at a cost she never imagined. Now, my life is peaceful. I redecorated the house, removed the clutter and the chaotic art that used to cover every wall. I manage my finances without stress. I sleep without wondering where my wife is at night. Sometimes I think back to that Tuesday morning when she removed her ring. That little ring, worth only a few $1,000s, became the symbol of a decision that cost her everything. She wanted freedom without responsibility, and in the end, that choice closed more doors than it opened.